Hi, welcome to the Crypto Republic. Before we begin today, if you're serious about staying ahead in this once-in-a-lifetime financial shift, make sure you like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic. Hello, XRP Army, and welcome back to the Crypto Republic, your go-to channel for the latest high energy updates in digital assets. Before we get started with today's business, make sure to smash that like button, ring that bell, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic, bringing you updates every day at noon and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just a reminder, this video is for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to start this video off with a very simple statement. Something important just shifted in the XRP ecosystem, and most people are completely overlooking it. Not because the information isn't out there, not because it's hidden, but because it doesn't look dramatic on the surface. And that's usually when the biggest changes happen. And before we go any further, let me be very clear about why this moment matters. There's one thing XRP absolutely can't afford to lose right now, not just on the charts, but in how the market interprets what's happening behind the scenes. If confidence holds here, the story stays intact. If it doesn't, this turns out in a very different conversation. That's why this matters more than a single red or green candle always, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to think back to the dot-com era. Most people ignored Amazon and Google when they were just ideas on paper. Today, missing early clarity, moments like this in crypto could feel exactly the same way. XRP's current moment is in one of those early gates. It's a lot like the story of Joseph in Egypt. He didn't create grain out of nowhere. He simply prepared a system ahead of a looming famine. When the crisis hit, the prepared system became critical. That's exactly what XRP represents right now, a ledger and liquidity rail built for when global systems need it the most. Now, I know the broader crypto market looks shaky right now. Volatility's picking up. Sentiment is all over the place. And you're probably seeing no shortage of people calling for downside panic or outright collapse. But ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing, and here's where clarity and that Gucci mindset comes in. Markets don't turn when everyone's watching them or watching the same candle. They turn when the narratives quietly change underneath the surface. And today, I want to talk about one of those narrative shifts, how it ties directly into XRP, why it matters more than short-term price action, and why the moment is very different from what we've seen in the past. As always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to everyone who supports this channel. Liking the video and subscribing really does make a difference. And I love reading all your comments and answering them. And I know the community abroad loves reading everything as well. With all that said, let's break this down, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the real shift most people missed. Right now, the crypto industry is quietly split into two very different camps. One side still believes this entire system has to be torn down and rebuilt from scratch. The other understands something far less exciting, but far more realistic. That adoption doesn't come from destruction. It comes from integration. XRP has always lived right at that fault line, and what just changed is which side is starting to win the argument. Think back to the Tower of Babel. Chaos emerged when there was no universal system of language. XRP acts like the universal bridge. It's a standardized ledger that allows everyone to communicate and transact efficiently, avoiding the chaos. So when people ask what just changed, they usually expect one headline, one announcement, one explosive catalyst. But that's not how structural shifts work, ladies and gentlemen. What changed is the direction of pressure. For years, the crypto industry has existed in a state of uncertainty, like walking over a frozen lake. Not because the technology didn't work, but because no one knew where the guardrails were going to land. And uncertainty is poison for institutions, unfortunately. Institutions don't need perfection. They don't need ideological purity. They do need rules that they can operate within. And quietly, that's exactly what's forming. What you see right now is not a sudden victory, but a transition from chaos to framework. And that transition disproportionately benefits projects that were built for compliance, scale, and institutional integration from day one. That's where XRP comes into this conversation. While much of crypto was built on the assumption that banks would be replaced, XRP was built on the assumption that banks would adopt. Let that sink in, ladies and gentlemen. That's massive. That difference matters more now than it ever has before. It's like Henry Ford introducing the assembly line. The idea wasn't to destroy all craftsmen, but to build something faster, more reliable, and scalable. That's what XRP does with the financial system. It doesn't overthrow banks, it upgrades them. Consider the Dutch East India Company, the first multinational corporation with advanced bookkeeping and trade ledgers. They didn't conquer by force. They built infrastructure and systems that can enable them to dominate global trade. XRP's ledger is that kind of infrastructure for the 21st century financial system. Let's talk about ideological versus reality. One of the biggest misunderstandings in crypto has been this idea that the financial system would be overthrown overnight by retail users. That narrative sounds exciting on paper, but it ignores how power, liquidity, and infrastructure actually move. Financial systems don't disappear. They upgrade, ladies and gentlemen. And the uncomfortable truth is that the largest institutions in the world are not being disrupted. They are being retooled as we speak. This is where a lot of ideological friction shows up in crypto. There's one camp that believes the system will be torn down entirely. There's another camp that understands the system will evolve from the inside. XRP has always lived in the second camp, ladies and gentlemen. And right now, that camp is gaining ground. The moment regulation shifts from will this exist to how will this operate, the conversation changes completely and drastically. And that's the shift most people have missed and are missing. Why XRP is positioned differently, you might ask? Here's the key thing to understand. XRP doesn't need a perfect regulatory outcome. It never has. It needs clarity, even imperfect clarity, because its competitive advantage is not ideological, it's execution. Think of it less like blowing up the system and more like engaging the gears. You don't need every cog turning at full speed on day one. You just need the mechanism to start moving. And once it does, momentum takes over. And that's what clarity represents here. Not perfection, but motion. Here's a real-world example. I want to talk about ATMs. When the first ATMs were rolled out in the 1970s, people thought banks would lose control. Banks didn't die. They adopted, scaled, and became more efficient. XRP is facing a similar dynamic, adoption without destruction. Let's talk about that triangular trade, colonial banking, for a second. Even during colonial times, financial networks like triangular trade and early colony banking didn't explode overnight. Countries that built infrastructure first controlled the outcomes. XRP is playing the same game, ladies and gentlemen. Infrastructure first, ideological second. Once that doorway exists, the flow begins. And once the flow begins, it does not stop. XRP was designed to operate at scale, with speed, with compliance, and with institutional counterparties. So when clarity starts to form, even in small incremental ways, XRP doesn't have to adjust. It just accelerates, ladies and gentlemen. That's a massive difference from projects that require a complete system overhaul to succeed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, last night was pretty intense. We have a very different take on what happens overseas and that we spend on the phone with clients that retain us in any capacity. See, when the market's open in Asia right now, there's so much fireworks happening and movement, it's hard to quantify very fast. But what happened last night, and in our opinion, this affected the broader crypto market whatsoever, 100%. And why I say whatsoever? Because we believe it directly affects all of crypto, okay? That's what we're telling to people who retain us, offices, family offices, funds of funds, because this is our viewpoint on this, okay? Gold last night may have taken a decisive step towards becoming collateral. What you saw, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Gold Exchange are building a cross-border clearing corridor that could transform gold into a true balance sheet liquidity instrument. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about rewiring and rewriting the plumbing of global finance. And in my opinion, last night, that had a lot to do with price action. That's massive, because now gold can be collateralized on balance sheets. So if the financial plumbing system over in the BRICS, the unit over there, that's seeing action, that's seeing a lot of changes, that's going to affect everything. Remember what we said with our first original map, right? We had the BRICS and we have the debt instruments on the west side, okay? So as they march forward, and they're about physical, not COMEX paper trading, they're about physical, okay? You're seeing a lot of things. So now this, as far as we're concerned, had a dramatic move last night in the gold market, which affected the crypto market, pushing everything down. And that's a big thing, okay? But now where this comes into play, and stay with me, volatility now is not a sign of weakness, ladies and gentlemen. Volatility is a sign of the market digesting. And a lot of people were asking us in the comments in the Patreon, the momentum traders for silver are not in there. So there's no top in silver. Okay, when the momentum traders come into the silver market, that's when you can start calling the top, because until those guys throw their hat in the ring, it can go much, much higher. But let's go back to talking about XRP, plumbing, global finance. Look, if they're making their moves with the unit, okay, and they're making their moves with gold to basically change how you can collateralize everything over there, that gold on a balance sheet now can be collateralized with unit exchange, that's massive. So as they're upgrading their side, you got to believe the West and the Tron side, they're going to upgrade as well. So what we see when the Asian market opens and the difference in the spreads between gold over there and gold in COMEX, that has an effect on the crypto market abroad. XRP's largest trading time zone is Asia. So if they're going to move money around and they're going to try to catch whatever they're going to do, whatever moves, and it'll go from asset A into B into C, then back into asset A, that has a lot to do with thin markets and liquidity, ladies and gentlemen. But again, right? The writing's on the wall here, okay? And it's just whether or not you're going to maintain the Gucci clarity of where we're going. So let me do 1 + 1 is 2 here, right? Get this clarity here, ladies and gentlemen. What they just did in the gold markets overseas, alarm bells should be going off in your head about why XRP is just, again, the answer to so many things, okay? And I run out of analogies to tell you, everyone, right? I do, right? But again, they're changing their financial system and how they do business. And believe you and me, things are going to be changing on this side. Remember, I tell you, don't throw mud on people, right? Because we don't know the angles about why they're doing and what they're doing. And I have been in Wall Street for too long, and I clerked for too many big, hardcore people that still can't believe I talk on YouTube. But you know what? I look at it like this. I like sharing it with everyone who comes to our community. I love reading the comments, even the people that hate on me. I love reading your comments and answering them. But for the people I clerked for and the people that I worked for the Board of Governors on COMEX and all these people, right now, I've been able to understand, and this is what I see, and I can see from the crow's nest where we're going and why. And this is not financial advice. This is my own interpretation that I'm doing for myself. And anyone that retains in any capacity about where the gold is going, where the world is going, and why. Okay? You have a tug of war of physical custody, physical clearing, and paper trading. They believe that to be the Achilles tendon of the overall markets. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. Again, I won't go against certain banks trading against them. I know who sits on the other side of the screens, and some of these people I've worked underneath for many years and learned. And again, if they're going to rewire their entire banking and commodity and financial plumbing, you better believe an upgrade 2.0 is coming to the west side of the tranche. It's coming. Look at it like this. How is it that silver can be priced point A over there, yet silver miners are still being priced on their balance sheet at $33, $34, $32 per ounce out of the ground? There's such a disconnect. And how you get ahead here, why they were the remora? We're the remora because we're underneath these sharks. We're going with them. They're protecting us. We clean their teeth. We get a free meal. They take us from point A to point B. Again, right? Everybody follows everybody in this industry. But why the market gets hit in Asia is because the difference in the price in gold on the exchanges is massive. Now, I had a long talk with one of the first family offices that ever hired me. And, I'm like family to them, right? And I do all the heavy lifting for these people. And again, they like me because I tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. That's how I got hired. Most of the people I work for, I just tell them what they need to hear, what's happening, the truth. Truth is treason, the empire of lies, right? Well, right here, right now, if there's a difference in spread and the price of metals in Asia and in COMEX, right? One or two things has to happen. Their price has to come down or our price has to go up. I don't know what the answer is right there. But I'll tell you the two things that I'm focusing on right now. Very, very big things. I apologize if the videos come out not at 12 and not at 7. We're trying to streamline this because, again, I can't get off the phones, and I do apologize. Welcome, everyone, on our Patreon. Welcome, everyone, in the membership channels. We're streamlining everything, having a lot of exciting new things are coming out. If you want to learn new things, please do come and sign up, right? But this is what we're paying attention. I'm going to be harping on this in the Patreon later today. Have a whole speech about this. Look, there's two things that could derail everything right now. Two things. The midterms and the yen. Oh my God, the yen. The yen. What a magnificent, magnificent financial specimen. Now, here's the way not to get cut up like sushi here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we're going to have this Gucci clarity right now. We're going to stay frosty. Look, we need inflation. We need Japan to have inflation. So whatever financial gods you're praying to, ask them, inflation, inflation. Because if Japan gets deflation, the market's going to come off the rails and crash. The midterms, again, you're going to hear a lot of caps about price caps. You're going to hear a lot of caps about interest rates, right, on credit cards, right? Again, these are momentary fixes, right? So as far as we're concerned, the world is changing right now. And we take cuts because when the market opens Sunday in Asia for us, right, when it opens for us, watch that. That is what we are paying attention to, okay? I don't have enough time to go through all of these things with you. I wish I did, right? But at the end of the day, Japan, pray for inflation, okay? That will help the BOJ. You pray for inflation. The midterms, if things radically change, things can come off the rails. I don't think they're going to, because at the end of the day, there's simply too much at stake, right? I'm not going to get involved and throw mud on banks, throw mud on individuals who have the courage, and I salute you, the courage to be the man in the arena. When you're the man in the arena, you understand what's going on. And that's the most important thing. To everybody who's some keyboard commando or whatever, talking about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that's your right. Not hating on you, love you too, right? But the man in the arena who puts it all on the line, his name, his reputation, everything, they know that the sweet taste of victory and the bitter sting of failure. Most people I know who trained me in finance to be a financial mercenary, we never failed because we were afraid of failure. This is all we did. We're designed for this, right? So when you wake up and you see the market getting hit in Asian times, I need you to focus on something. And if you're still listening, we have more rants at the end. Watch the global markets, because when they open and we're watching the differences in prices in gold and what's happening over there, they're rewiring everything right now. They're like, we're taking our ball away. We ain't playing with you guys anymore. We're demolishing what you once did, and we're putting our own system in place. Will that work? I don't know. Again, one price, either we meet their price or their price meets us. I don't know. But what I do know is as they try to rewire everything, rewiring is coming on our side. All right? So please, low leverage. Institutions are now trading XRP. What does that mean in English when I say this? Institutions are trading XRP now. They look at levels. So when it drops to certain levels, we were taught it's called the scoop. It looks like a scoop. It just gets scooped up. It hits levels, it hits bids, it gets scooped up and waits. Okay? Because in our time zone, no one's selling into this. And if you see a lot of people going in and out of trades on prop desks, they're following the alpha to make their numbers for the week, the month, the quarter, the year. Their bonuses depend on that, on a prop desk, okay? So, as everyone, I salute everybody here. I salute everybody. Because you have the courage, the conviction to stand in the breach, because things are going to change whether you want to or not. Don't let the noise of daily price fluctuations let you lose your Gucci conviction. Hold the line. Understand why you started and what's at stake. You will not get another chance at an opportunity like this. So whatever makes sense to your personal situation, get off the sidelines one way or another. I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm not giving you financial advice. The world is changing right now in front of your eyes. You want to be the ostrich, put your head in the ground? Go ahead. You want to listen to all the crazy news that comes out every day to distract you? Go ahead. These are your given rights. You want to have a seat at the table where the world is going? Go ahead. I'd like to hear from you guys in comment sections. Do you think that what they're trying to do over in Asia, it will be the undoing of the Western financial system? I'd love to hear this, right? Seriously, I want to hear this. You know, I have my own opinions, but I'm not going to get on this right now. But being a financial mercenary, ladies and gentlemen, we take advantage of everything. You understand me? Whether you like this side, that side, I don't like this coin, this guy sucks. It doesn't matter. Profit from every single opportunity that is given to us. The remora doesn't care what it eats inside of the shark's mouth. You think the remora has some kind of sit-down and conference with the shark? By the way, can you stop eating swordfish? Go eat some tuna. I like tuna better. It says, thank you for the free meal. Don't throw mud at anybody. Stay frosty, stay sharp. Now let's talk about price, because I know that's what a lot of people are watching here right now for. Yes, the charts have been volatile. Yes, we've seen aggressive moves, liquidation and fear. Now, could price still move lower from here? Absolutely. Could it move much higher from here? Absolutely. Markets don't move in straight lines, ladies and gentlemen, especially during transitions. Remember what we just said about gold. But if that happens, it won't be because the underlying story broke. It would be because markets often overshoot in both directions before they finally reprice reality. But here's what matters more than any single candle: structure. Let this sink in, ladies and gentlemen, structure. Despite the volatility, XRP has not broken its broader structural base. We're seeing stabilization, not collapse. That is what bottoms often look like. Uncomfortable? Yes. Slow and frustrating? Absolutely. Markets don't ring a bell when they turn. They grind it out. And historically, when fundamentals improve while price stagnates or declines, that diversion doesn't last forever. Eventually, one side has to catch up, like we spoke about prices. Either fundamentals deteriorate or price reiterates. And right now, the fundamentals are not deteriorating. During World War I and World War II, ladies and gentlemen, small incremental improvements in supply chains determined victory or defeat. Structural stability acts the same way. Volatility doesn't break. Clarity and adoption steadily move the system forward. I want to talk about the 2008 financial crisis. Think of the 2008 financial crisis. Gold and other systematic assets didn't spike overnight, but the groundwork was laid years before the public realized it. Price may be volatile now, but XRP's fundamentals are building quietly under the surface, just like systematic assets during that same time period. There's a fundamental disconnect. Ladies and gentlemen, look at what's happening across global markets. Equities are stretched, debt is expanding, liquidity systems are under pressure, and at the same time, crypto is moving closer to regulatory legitimacy, institutional adoption, and real-world use cases. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go any further, take a step out with me for a second, because the next part only makes sense if you stop thinking like a short-term trader looking at charts and start thinking like infrastructure builders and infrastructure investors, okay? This isn't about today's volatility. It's about liquidity, regulation, and real-world usage and converging, okay? Think about electricity and the internet. During the early 1900s, electricity networks weren't perfect from day one. Small incremental improvements eventually transformed cities. Later, early internet infrastructure investments did the same way. That's the type of slow structural upgrade we're seeing with XRP and regulatory clarity. Small shifts now, massive impact later. I want you to think about post-World War I hyperinflation Germany. Consider post-World War I Germany. Hyperinflation made unstructured systems fail rapidly. Structured, resilient ledgers like XRPs would have survived and thrived under that same stress. That disconnect doesn't make sense long term. Global markets can't trade at premium valuations while carrying massive systematic risk, then assets positioned in modernized financial infrastructure are fundamentally underpriced. That's the disconnect we're talking and we're watching play out right now. And XRP sits right at the center of that gap. So what this means moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, this is not about hype. It's not about timelines. This is about positioning. XRP doesn't need every headline to be bullish. It needs momentum in the right direction. And right now that momentum is shifting quietly, steadily, and without fireworks. That's usually when the smartest money pays attention. The people who win in markets aren't the ones who react emotionally to every move. They're the ones who understand where the system is heading before the crowd does. Ladies and gentlemen, and this is the part where I'll be honest. If you're here for 5-minute candles and instant gratification, this moment is going to feel boring. But if you're here for structural shifts that take time and change entire systems, this is exactly when you pay attention. I want to talk about after World War I, the Marshall Plan. Strategic instruction investments through the Marshall Plan enabled Europe to rebuild faster than anyone imagined. XRP's adoption and clarity bills are the 21st century version of that. Early infrastructure laying the groundwork for systematic impact. If you look at internet infrastructure in the early 2000s, few understood why fiber optics and server farms mattered. Today, they underpin almost everything. XRP and the ledger are the infrastructure moment for the financial system. The early adopters noticed, the rest caught up later. So, ladies and gentlemen, yes, something just changed for XRP. Not in a way that shows up on a 5-minute chart, but in the way that reshapes the next phase of the market. Moments like this don't feel exciting when they're happening. It's like watching paint dry on the wall. They feel obvious later, though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ladies and gentlemen, your support allows me to keep bringing these deep dive, high value insights to the crypto community. I love reading your comments. So does everyone in the community. I need you to stay curious, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. I need you to stay emotionless always. Watch XRP closely. Ladies and gentlemen, the content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. Always do your own research. Consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions. Remember, the game is changing, and those who understand it first will benefit the most. Make sure you're on the right side of it. You have two choices. You can be like the crowd, reacting after the move, rationalizing why they missed it, telling themselves they'll never let it happen again, or you can be the one who saw behind the curtain, the one who understood the infrastructure shift, the one who positioned early, not randomly, but intentionally. Because some moments in history are loud, but the ones that change everything are quiet, right up until the moment they're not. And this is one of those moments. Do not blink, because the world is distracting you with noise, while XRP continues developing behind the scenes and building momentum in the broader digital asset landscape. Stay sharp, stay informed, accumulate knowledge. Your move now will be remembered. This is not the end of the story. This is just the beginning. This opened your eyes. Smash that like button, ring that bell, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Turn on notifications, and most importantly, subscribe to the Crypto Republic. We break down the major global banking trends shaping digital assets today, giving you context, clarity, and research you can use. Don't just watch history happen. Stay informed, stay ahead, and stay in the Republic.